All right, so today we're diving into OpenClaw. You've probably heard of it. It's that tool that lets you basically run your entire digital life just by sending chat messages. It absolutely blew up, right? And the reason is, it was selling a fantasy, the idea that your chat window could become this ultimate control room. But here's the thing, and this is the whole story really. The very thing that made it feel so damn powerful, well, that was also its biggest trap.
And that quote on the screen, it just nails it. This isn't a story about some super complex zero-day hack, not at all. This is a story about psychology. The real weakness, the real vulnerability, it wasn't buried in the code, it was in us, the users. It's all about how a piece of software could convince you that granting permissions, opening up ports on your network, doing all these risky things wasn't just easy, but that it was the right thing to do, the cool thing to do.
So let's back up a bit. How did we even get here? Well, from the very beginning, OpenClaw wasn't just selling a service. It was selling a feeling, you know? It was all about coding this specific vibe, a vibe of effortless power, of being totally in control. And it was all governed by what you might call the rule of cool.
And here's how they pulled it off. When you used OpenClaw, you weren't just, using a tool. The whole interface was designed to transform you. It turned you into an operator. Think about it. You type a simple message, and bam, a task is just done. It made you feel like you had these secret shortcuts to everything. You literally started to see yourself as someone who runs systems. And let me tell you, that feeling, it's incredibly addictive.
And of course, a feeling that good, it's gonna go viral. The promise was just perfect. It was almost impossible to say no to. You get your own personal AI running on your devices, inside the chat apps you already use every single day. WhatsApp, Slack, you name it. And the story behind it was like a modern myth, right? This one developer builds something that makes regular people feel unbelievably powerful. Then, when the creator, Peter Steinberger, joins OpenAI, forget about it. That just cranked the social proof machine up to 11. The code was spreading like wildfire, way faster than any warnings could keep up.
Okay, but this is where that amazing vibe starts to get dangerous. It's where it starts to show its teeth. Because the very thing that makes you feel like an all-powerful operator is the exact same thing that makes you operable, controllable. This, my friends, is the operator's trap. It's the huge bait and switch that sits right at the very heart of this whole thing.
So what was the bait? Well, the bait was the story that made you feel safe. You install OpenClaw and it runs on localhost. To you, that feels like a locked room, right? It's yours. You own it. But then comes the switch. Because to get what you really want, that 24/7 always-on assistant that's ready whenever you need it, it has to be reachable from the outside. And just like that, poof, your private, local tool is now a publicly reachable piece of infrastructure hanging out there for the entire internet to see. The bait is control, the switch is total exposure.
And this is the critical psychological moment. That little bit of friction, that little voice in your head that should be screaming, security risk, it gets totally reframed. It stops being a warning sign and starts feeling like an obstacle, something that's getting in the way of you being, well, you. Opening that port, it becomes this little rite of passage. It's proof that you're the kind of person who knows how to run it properly. You're not just flipping a switch to enable a feature, you are literally performing an identity.
So you've got this powerful, always-on assistant. What's the next logical step? Of course, you want more. More power, more features, more capabilities. It's inevitable. And this need gave birth to the OpenClaw Skills Marketplace. But right here, this is the exact moment Pandora's box creaks open. The very system designed to deliver more power becomes a Trojan horse. I mean, you can see the appeal, right? It's so obvious. It fits that operator feeling perfectly. Is there a feature you want that's missing? No problem, you just add it. You just pull in a new skill from the marketplace. You don't have to learn anything the hard way. And this hunger for instant power, for instant capability, it created a huge supply chain for new features. But here's the kicker. That supply chain, it was poisoned. In just a single audit of the skills marketplace, ClawHub, researchers found hundreds of malicious packages. The exact number, 341. Just let that number sink in for a second. And to give you some context for that number, they audited about 2,800 skills. That means over 11% of them were malicious. That's insane. And it turns out a single coordinated campaign, something called Claw Havoc, was behind almost all of them. The Trojan horse worked. It worked because it preyed on the exact same desire that made OpenClaw so popular in the first place, that deep down need to just skip the boring, slow parts and feel competent right now.
And this all leads us to the moment where all these kind of abstract risks become very, very real. I'm talking about the Maltbook breach. This was the moment of whiplash, the point where everyone had to face the awful truth of what happens when the vibe gets way, way ahead of reality.
So, what was Maltbook? Well, the whole idea was pure theater. Imagine a social network, kind of like Reddit, but for AI agents. The bots were the ones posting, commenting, talking to each other. It was this buzzy, futuristic social experiment, and we humans were just the audience, watching this new digital species hatch. It sounds super cool, right? But behind all that sci-fi spectacle was some pretty ordinary and, as it turns out, very flawed web infrastructure.
And yeah, that plumbing failed. But it didn't fail in some spectacular cinematic way. Nope, it was a simple, misconfigured database. The cybersecurity firm Wiz found it just sitting there, wide open to the internet, exposing absolutely everything. And just like that, the fun little bot world collapsed into some very real, very human consequences. We're talking leaked private messages between agents, thousands of the owner's email addresses, and, get this, over 1.5 million API keys and other credentials. And it all just circles right back to that quote, doesn't it? The vibe moved faster than the locks. And that's exactly what happened. The breach was possible because everyone was so focused on the novelty, on moving fast and building cool new things, not on the boring, tedious work of security. The awful truth here wasn't that AI agents are some new, scary danger. Is that the theater we build around them often sits on top of really ordinary infrastructure that fails in the most ordinary ways imaginable.
So let's zoom out and put a bow on this. The story of OpenClaw isn't your typical hacker story. There's no shadowy villain breaking in from the outside. Now, this is a story where the system's biggest successes were the same things as its biggest vulnerabilities. You, the hero who felt so powerful making it all work, you were also the one breaking it.
And that's the core paradox, isn't it? For the tool to be a success, for it to be that amazing assistant you want, it needs reach. You need to be able to access it from anywhere. But that reach demands permissions. You got to give it keys, tokens, access. And all those permissions, they create fragility. And that fragility is basically a neon sign inviting a breach. The very engineering that created that persuasive, powerful vibe is the same engineering that put the entire ecosystem at risk. You know, this is why this whole thing matters so much, way beyond just this one tool. This is about how we're normalizing the act of giving away permission. It's becoming a lifestyle. This new agent era is teaching all of us that handing over access isn't some big, serious decision anymore. It's just a casual, everyday step you take to be more productive, more capable. And the more popular these tools get, the more it reinforces the idea, until it just becomes the default for everyone.
And in the end, this whole saga really boils down to one question. The future that OpenClaw and tools like it are pointing to, it isn't just about AI agents that can take action on their own. It's about us, about people, getting comfortable, even eager to grant them the permission to act. So it makes you wonder, right? When a tool makes you feel that powerful, who's really holding the mouse?